On my recent video, Morality is for Friends Only, I explained why morality cannot be universal, but is necessarily constrained to the in-group and its allies, i.e. to friends. However, a number of people in the comments section seemed confused about who a friend is in the first place. On the one hand, this confusion is somewhat amusing since all healthy animals, including all human groups, except for Europeans, know the difference between their friends and their enemies. Indeed, this distinction is, as Carl Schmitt said, the fundamental political distinction. On the other hand, however, as an ethnic European myself, this confusion is deeply concerning to say the least, and so I am making this video to make it as clear as I can that the line separating friend from enemy is not arbitrarily drawn. Let us define friend operationally. A friend is anyone who 1. Shares restraints, the system of internal limits we call the moral code, which is the behavioral grammar that serves to persist cooperation and minimize conflict. A friend is one who agrees to forego certain actions to preserve cooperation within the in-group. 2. Enforces norms. Norms are expected behavioral patterns within a group unique to its culture and interests. A friend is one who participates in upholding these norms and punishing defectors. 3. Contributes to existential and reproductive interests. A friend is one who shares risks, cooperates toward common goals, invests in group capital, and ensures the sovereignty and property of fellow group members. 4. Defends the commons. The commons are everything a group possesses collectively, including its physical, institutional, and genetic capital. A friend is one who defends these commons from predation and parasitism. And that's it. No personal affinities are required, just the demonstrated alignment of interests in the domains of restraints, norms, contribution, and defense. Let's talk about the biological basis of the in-group. The commons includes everything a group must collectively defend, including its territory, institutions, infrastructure, public aesthetics, culture, traditions, norms, and gene pool. Yes, the gene pool is a commons, a resource the whole community relies on. Humans are biological organisms whose most primal drive is to propagate their genetic material. All higher-order behaviors, affection, religious and civic rituals, the creation of art and culture, status competition, and even war, ultimately channel this evolutionary imperative. To deny this is to deny the logic and reality of our status as biological organisms. To be sure, humans are not merely gene-carrying robots, but all healthy animals serve the interest of their genetic future. Accordingly, your in-group is structured concentrically, expanding outward. The first circle is kin, direct family ties. The second is communal, extended family, neighbors, and co-residents who share interests. The third is tribal, those sharing deep cultural and genetic alignment. Fourth is ethnic or national, the political and institutional manifestation of shared cultural and genetic alignment, sharing language, law, and collective mythos. And fifth is racial, those sharing civilizational and group evolutionary strategy at the largest scale. This is not an ideology, but simply a biological law. A friend is a cooperator in the game of genetic and cultural survival. It is possible to have allies who are not genetically similar, but anyone working to the detriment of your genetic interests is not a friend. Let me now preempt one expected objection. What if genetic in-group members betray their natural in-group? Genetically, they share biological kinship and the group's genetic capital, but behaviorally, they are defectors, opposing, undermining, or parasitizing the group's evolutionary fitness by, for example, encouraging race mixing, advocating demographic replacement, demanding that de facto rival groups be treated as in-group allies, refusing to defend the commons, or rejecting the primacy of kinship obligations. This betrayal reclassifies them as traitors, who are in-group by ancestry, but enemies by behavior. Genetic kin who defect are not friends because they do not reciprocate the group's efforts to preserve its interests, and reciprocity is the minimum condition for moral obligation. Our genes define our kinship, but sustained membership is contingent on behavior. Only those who demonstrate loyalty to the group's existential and reproductive interests deserve moral consideration. Anything else is sentimentality, unworthy of the gravity of group survival. Why do all groups, except whites, know the difference between enemy and friend? The reason is that modern-day ethnic Europeans are total weirdos. And by weirdo, I mean Western, educated, industrial, rich, democratic, and outbred. The WEIRD acronym was coined by Joseph Henrich and colleagues in 2010. As psychologist Jonathan Haidt puts it, weird people are the least typical, least representative people you could study if you want to make generalizations about human nature. In its output, weirdness is expressed as low kinship preference, trading the benefits of close kin ties for those of impersonal cooperation, markets, and legal systems, which are adaptive in post-agrarian, homogeneous, high-trust polities. However, this same adaptation blinds weird people to the evolutionary logic of group competition and the in-group preference exhibited by other groups, leaving them uniquely susceptible to exploitation and parasitism. White people, weird people, exhibit highly atypical patterns of thought, behavior, and organization, being more individualistic, rule-abiding, and inclined to think of morality in abstract universalist terms, which they then project onto members of other groups that operate with a dual moral standard, one for their in-group and another for outsiders, exploiting the asymmetry for competitive advantage. This recent historical tendency toward suicidal altruism, pathological empathy, universalist pseudo-morality, and blindness to in-group, out-group boundaries is not something innate to ethnic Europeans, who are fully capable of being tribal and in-group oriented. Rather, our current anomalous state has arisen from the convergence of several factors such as centuries of outbreeding, the corrosive effects of liberalism, the inheritance of Christianity's moral universalism, and the relentless indoctrination of the post-World War II boomer truth regime. Indeed, the modern European outlook is a unique phenomenon. Never before has an entire civilization internalized an anti-kinship pseudo-morality, actively embracing self-liquidation by abandoning its own existential interests and dissolving group boundaries. To recognize these boundaries may not always be pleasant, but it is necessary to achieve evolutionary success. Morality is for friends only, and a friend is anyone who contributes to and defends your group, its land, its law, and its blood.